Hi, this is Cooper Jocelyn, and I'm here with Vincent. Vincent, I wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself, name, pronouns, and if you're comfortable with it, identity, like gender identity.
Vincent, he, him, and male.
Cool,
Male of trans experience. Yeah.
awesome. Thank you so much for sitting down and doing this interview with me. I am so excited to talk to you. And oh, I'm sorry, I think there might be a delay.
Okay.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, cool. If it gets bad, I'll turn off my video as well, so it's can focus more on you and your story. Um, but yeah. So to get these interviews rolling, I kind of, start at the beginning, and then from there we can go wherever you want to go. Um, the first question I've been asking is, where were you born and when?
I was born in Santurce, Puerto Rico in September 18th, 1981.
Awesome. My family is also from Puerto Rico, so I've been there a few times. It's so beautiful.
Cool.
So I guess, when you were growing up, what was it like? What was your family like? What were the dynamics like?
Um, Early on, from my perspective, it was kind of like a normal family. I came to find out later it was a blended family, but from my perspective growing up, mom, dad, brother, sister, you know, house in the suburbs, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
Um,
And older, younger siblings? Are you the middle
older,
sibling?
older, much older. I'm the youngest. I'm the last.
Cool. Did you grow up in Puerto Rico?
Only for a hot minute. Right when I was around two ish, they moved to Texas, and then to Georgia, and then to Florida for a bit, and then back to Georgia. They were nurses, and that's kind of how they escaped poverty. Because, like, during the war, my grandma became a nurse, and then my mom became a nurse, and then my dad became a nurse. So when they came to the mainland, it was mostly to chase jobs and make more money. Because, like, you can be a nurse in Puerto Rico, but it doesn't make as much.
Yeah. My family did a very similar thing. Puerto Rico to Texas to Florida to Indiana to Florida. So I definitely feel you on the moving around front. So would you say you spent most of your childhood in Georgia then, it sounds like?
Um, Not really. Like, my childhood is, well, when we're saying childhood, what age range are we talking?
However you would define it. I normally think of my childhood as like, until I was maybe 13 and then it's adolescence. But honestly, like I've been a kid for a very long time. So
Okay, so, like, using that metric, like adolescence, from childhood to adolescence, it was Georgia, and then another giant chunk in Florida, and then another chunk in Virginia. But that was like right when we were getting into the adolescent range.
cool.
So always in the South.
Yep. Yep. And to kind of move into our conversation about gender, do you have any like early memories of what gender meant to you or, anything like that?
So when I was like going by like where we were living, because I remember the apartment in Texas, I had to have been around 3 years old. I had my first cognitive kind of gender moment where I was looking at myself and myself as a boy, as male. Um, Maybe you're aware of this, like, with Latinos, they do that ear piercing thing when you're an infant. Well, same here. I had the ear pierced. Yep.
Yep.
And I was running around and playing and doing my stuff, and one of the little studs fell out. And I went to the bathroom, and then when I got up to wash my hands, I looked in the mirror. I saw only one of them, and my brother also only wore one of them. So I was like, cool, I'm a boy. So I went to go tell my dad, and that did not go very well. So that core memory was me kind of getting backhanded and told that's not a thing. So don't say that anymore.
Yeah, that is. It's interesting you bring up the ear piercing thing because that was like an early gender moment for me as well. I was like, interesting choice here, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a. I got my ears pierced a couple years ago again, and I was like, why does this feel so familiar? And my mom was like, oh, because yeah.
Yeah, I in high school I pierced the cartilage up here to try to like, I don't know. I really gendered things for a really long time because like I'm 42, and like the younger generation grew up with the internet and they grew up, having the word trans. I didn't know the word trans until I was 24.
So let's talk about that. When did you start to, put the whole trans piece of yourself together? Because I know for a lot of people it takes a long, long time. And
So I always thought of myself as male and as a boy. So like I had the concept of trans, I didn't have the word for trans. So it was this situation where I would play with the boys, act like a boy, talk with the boys, like in every real sense, other than 5% of my body, I was just another guy. Where it became a problem was puberty. That's a different story. But, when we started getting into like kindergarten, the gender defined started getting more sharp. And then you're starting to go into like junior high, middle school, and it gets even sharper. And, you know, anything that doesn't fit into a neat little box on A and B, especially other kids, they dog each other bad. And it could be anything like, for me it was gender, but it could have been you don't like the same band I like, or you don't, you know, come from the same neighborhood, or your clothes are not great, or like they look for any. No drag queen can read as viciously as a teenage child. That's it. I'm sorry, the end. And then you're in an enclosed environment with a pack of them. So it's like a bunch of wild, vicious, hormonal hyenas.
yeah, that is extremely accurate. Like
Mm-hmm.
every word you just said, that is just how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
And the parentals, right? All they know is I'm being bullied for some reason. Administration knows I'm being bullied for some reason, and then they're kind of the first ones to kind of start asking me, and they're like, "Do you feel like a boy?" Yeah. Do you like girls? I guess, because like I didn't even have like that like yet, toward anybody. Um, and then they're like, maybe you're a lesbian. I'm like, so it was like it ticked some boxes, but it wasn't ticking all the boxes. Like it was like, yeah, and something else, you know. But you back then too, like you really tried to like shove yourself in that box too, and that didn't work either because like the other lesbians rejected me. They're like, "You're a guy. We don't like you. You're
Oh,
so
that is
aggressive. Why won't you let me touch you? Are you stoned?" I'm like, I guess. I don't know.
that is such an interesting period in life. You're just starting to like you get some language and it's helpful, but it's not, it's not quite there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so did you identify as a lesbian like from that point onward? Was that like any help to you, or was it just like a kind of a weird
Like
moment?
I did this really weird thing where I used to talk about myself in the third person because pronouns sucked. Like nobody wanted to call me male pronouns, so I was like, okay, my pronoun is my name. So I sounded like a pirate, which led to a really interesting because I had like literally two friends throughout middle school and high school, and they're still my friends to this day. And one of them got blindsided, and they're like, "Is that a girl or a boy?" And they're like, "Oh, him? Um, he's a pirate."
Oh, I
So
love that. That is awesome.
yeah,
That's
that's allyship right there.
Yeah, honestly, I was gonna say, like, when you find that one person who's just like chill about things, like that's good. um, so after high school, what happened? What did life look like for you in terms of gender and just in general?
Well, before we get to high school, there's more in middle school that led to high school.
Yeah,
So
let's do it.
like a lot of other trans people, I had a couple attempts. Um, because again, like I didn't have language, I didn't have support. Um, my dad, who was the same dad who was like, no, no, bad, um, tried to send me to therapy. But therapy then, they weren't even up to what a trans person was either. Like that, I think that DSM still kind of put it under the transvestite umbrella. And then they were really confused because they're like, but usually that's biological men who do that. So do you want to be a girl? Like, no. You-
Just coming all the way back around, kind of full circle.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it, and then at some point it just kind of felt like an interrogation. Like it, I don't want to say it was like conversion therapy because it wasn't, but it was this really frustrating circle where they're trying to get me to tell them a problem that I don't have the language to express. So then they're like, has I don't know, has anger issues. I'm like, I'm not angry. I'm frustrated. Leave me alone. Let me play video games. I can pick my gender there, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, there's always a good character creator, so yeah.
And so and then there's lots of like family drama and whatever. So things kind of got really crazy, and I had my first girlfriend, and that ended up being a gender mindfuck because like I was her boyfriend and she knew that and we talked about that. So there was no like weird illusion stuff. But then she came on real like I was like 13, 14. She came on really, really strong and wanted to like have sex. And I was not there. I was not there yet. Like the spirit is willing, the body is not. And I had a freeze response. And so the next day, she got very upset and didn't talk to me about it and instead dumped me for Eugene, who was like the walking embodiment of a human booger, like completely unwashed basement troll who worked at like a Hasbro hobby toy store thing in the mall. Is like, I'm leaving you for Eugene because he has a job and a penis. I'm like, ow, okay, thanks. I hate it. So I was already having a really bad day, and then the meds they were putting me on for my anger issues made me sleepy, and I fell asleep in class. And then that administrator called my dad, who had a big old cow and came home and didn't talk to me, didn't ask about my day, wasn't interested in me at all. And he just busted in when I was taking a shower and beat me within an inch of my life and then went to work. So, I lost my shit and I tried to do the thing unalive. And said friend from middle school called me and was like, "Hey, how you doing? I heard you had a tough day." And I was like, "What was that?" "Unalive myself." And she called the cops and saved my life. So,
But,
but
yeah.
that became and I say that story to say this story. Um, Things got really volatile. And at that point, I really started feeling unsafe. So I clammed up and I stopped talking. So I ended up in a mental institution for a month called Circles of Care. It was like a children's psychiatric. And they just kept trying to pull it out of me, trying to ask me what's going on.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Where did
Okay. I'm gonna turn that. Hold on. Okay, let's see if that helps. Um,
you hear now?
yeah, I can hear you. It's still a little video's a little fuzzy and stuff, but I think I have your audio for now.
All right, cool. So, yeah.
Um, I'm so sorry. I think the last thing I heard was they kept trying to pull it out of you in the mental institution.
Yeah, so I was there for a month, and therapist after doctor, even other patients were trying to pull it out of me, like, what's up? And again, I don't have the language to explain that, so I have to kind of talk around it and talk in vaguities to try to describe it, but it's kind of like they're wanting a laser, and all I got is a shotgun. Like, I can't really tell them what's happening. So they discharged me and said I had anger issues again, and it became unsafe. So I went to go and after a big old fight, I went to go live with my sister, and I kind of bounced around from family member to family member, and it just kind of felt like the world was pushing me toward something like you were born with X, so you should be this. Like, you should marry a good Catholic boy and have babies or something. And it's just like, first of all, I'm not really grokking the sexuality like that, like everybody else is. Like, everybody else is getting hit with hormones and they're just like, that looks delicious. And I'm over here like, so this video game I was playing, and we really didn't have, that's another thing we didn't have. We didn't have the concept of asexuality either, you know? And so I just kind of felt like an alien moving around the world because nothing fit. So after high school, and that was, trauma, more trauma, high school trauma, more boyfriends, some girlfriends, whatever. Um, I didn't really have a lot of prospects, so I moved halfway across the country with 5 minutes notice and my cousin's car, and moved to St. Louis, Missouri with the one friend from high school because, like, yeah, we're going to get an apartment. They're going to be cool. We're going to get away from the adults. We're the adults now. We're going to work our fast food job at Hardee's and well laid plans, you know?
Oh yeah, yep. I definitely felt that way moving out of Florida up to DC. So
Yeah.
yeah. What was Missouri like?
Miserable. That's kind of a tongue in cheek joke, but in a way, Missouri was like time stood still. And even though St. Louis is a town, like a city, it really functions more like a small town. But this was a town nobody knew me. So it was easier to like blend in and kind of disappear. And, I wasn't around family members anymore. I'm not in school anymore. So I kind of had a bit more freedom to just do what I want. Um, the only problem with that is the designation of other still followed me. So when I would get, these fast food jobs, they were like, that person's odd, and they'd want to talk to me and I would kind of just rebuff because it's like people getting close to me just equals drama. Um, and I made some friends along the way, and somehow I ended up in. So, how do I put this? Goth bars in Missouri are not like goth bars out here in the cities. First of all, that was like my main hangout, and even though I say goth bar, it was a gay bar with a goth night. And it was like Wednesday in a basement. and, and you'd walk in and everybody's wearing like everything, like their closets threw up on them. You'd have the one person trying to walk around like, I'm a vampire, I'm the crow. And then you had somebody trying to imitate Susie Sue from the Banshees. And, you'd have some guy who looked like he fell out of Hot Topic. And you have the random goth juggalo. And then there'd just be some dude in a black shirt just hanging out. Don't know how he got here. Everyone's staring at him like, who are you? And then some random large lady with corsets like spinning burned CDs. And there's like a tray of baked cookies. We're just all going to dance in circles. But,
I need. Sorry, I need it to be noted on this, especially because my camera is off now for the internet. This interview is just going to be me laughing like just the entire time. Like, you are so funny. I need you to know that. Excellent storyteller. You are killing it.
Thank you. I'm trying my best. But, that's another thing is like, at some point, hanging out at the goth bars, and I dabbled a little bit in high school with paganism, but I kind of really started getting more into it in like, my early 20s. And I think it was kind of not the actual community, but like the concept, the disestablishmentarianism of it. Like, no central power. I'm the power. I'm going to stand in a circle in the woods and eat cake. Meh. You know. So,
So, sorry, I was just going to ask: are you still pagan?
We're gonna get there.
Okay. Okay, take your time. Whatever you need. I'm
It's
strapped in for this. I'm ready.
it's kind of a column A, column B. So a lot of those circles of like goth and alternative and other and gay and now we know trans and pagan, they all have this like little Venn diagram that meet in the middle somewhere and it calls other. So because they have that intersection there of other, people kind of move around in the middle of that. And whereas nowadays it seems like there's a lot of like defined fandoms and communities, back then it was like all those freaks over there. They're over there. Yeah, there's the one looking like Stevie Nicks, and then the other one talking to a tree. Yeah, it wasn't so segmented.
Right.
Um, and because it wasn't so segmented, there was a lot of bleed through that created opportunities. Like one of my drinking buddies over at the goth bar was like, "Hey, I know this pagan commune in the Ozark Mountains. You want to come?" And I'm like, "Can you explain the words you just said to me?" She's like, "There's a place, 180 acres of land, in the woods, and we go there, and hang out with total strangers, I'm still following you, and we worship nature and get drunk." I'm like, a rational person would be like, this probably is a dangerous situation, but I'm a young 20-year-old. Let's go. And I did, and I went, and you know, now I know it was a cult, but I didn't know it was a cult then. And yeah, I spent a good like 5 years there. But what I liked about nature spirituality is that it was tangible. And there were things in nature that made a lot more sense than this book with an invisible man is telling me I'm bad because I exist. And in nature, at least the way I grokked it, like nature is a spectrum. There's male animals and female animals and sort animals and animals that switch around and gay animals and this thing and that thing and amoebas. Like, I was looking at it as a full spectrum. But then I ran into these people who we now call TERFs. They didn't have that name yet.
Mm.
And they were not grokking what I was grokking. So fights ensued, and, basically they put up with me as long as I, was chopping trees and being a very strong woman. Even though I told them I am a dude. They're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, sure, sure." It doesn't become real for other people until you grow a beard, until your voice drops. And there was a visceral moment where, well, I'm about to skip a story. Let me go back. Let me go back. Back to the main quest. So said turf lady was like, "I want lip balm. Here's money, go get me some." And this place in the Ozark Mountains, the closest like town was a half an hour away because Missouri. So it's no small thing when somebody's like, "Here's some money, go to town." It's you end up taking orders for like half the people there, and you're shopping for multiple people, and you have a little notepad out, and okay, Billy wants Cheetos, Lila wants, and it becomes an all-day affair. So you try to like grab the money and sneak out before anyone knows you're going to the store. Which is not I've never been able to successfully do it. So I go out to the store, and this little town was called Columbia, Missouri, and there's 3 colleges in it, and that's the whole town. Like when it goes from like 10,000 people to like 20 as soon as all the kids leave. Like that's their whole town, their whole economy is these colleges. So it just so happened that the school was let out. So when the economy and the colleges shut down, some of the stores will shut their main stores down, but then they'll have like one location still open. And there was this health food store called Clover's. And that's the only place you can get these hippie products. So I drive into town to go get this lip balm. It was Burt's Bees, by the way. And and I get to the store, and this is the tiny little location that looks like a row house. And I get up in there, and there's only one other car parked there, and it had this funky symbol looking thing on a bumper sticker that said "Question Gender" on it. And I was very confused. So then I went in, and there's no one in this store. It's only one person in this store other than me, and it's the clerk. So I'm going around, and I get the lip balm, and then I'm like, well, I might as well get some carob chunks while I'm here. Everything else looks kind of like supplements. There's no food here. Dried papaya. It looks like shoe leather. I think that's been dried a little too long. So I go up to the counter and I go buy the thing, and I'm getting ready to leave, and I'm like, hey, that bumper sticker on that car, is that your car? And the dude on the other side got really scared. And I don't know what you would call it. Some people call it like seeing auras or something. Like there was something familiar about him. And it registered to me as gay, but something else. So he starts having a little bit of a breakdown in front of me and saying that his radical feminist girlfriend put that on the car, and oh my God, you clocked me, and all this other stuff. And I just kind of grab him by the shoulders. I'm like, what are you talking about? Snap out of it again. And he's like, I'm trans. And I'm like, what's that? And then he explained it, and I was like, oh, you have the word. How did you do this? And now I'm shaking him down like this is a robbery. Tell me your secrets.
Give me all your gender.
Pretty much. And then he explained, like, no, there's a word for this, and there's treatments and therapies, and you can transition and grow a beard. And I was just like, oh my God, there is a God. And I found him in the health food store. So I grabbed this guy, and he gives me his email and a link to a website. Now I'm living in the mountains over here now, so the internet was dial-up. So I get this website from him. I thank him. He's still a little freaking out, but whatever. And I get in my car and I drive back to the commune. I give her damn, whatever, her lip balm. And I immediately go to the giant box of a computer that's in there, and I put in the internet, it makes all the nice noises. And I get on that website, and that website was called Transter. You ever hear of Transter?
No, but I'm opening a new tab and checking it out right now, see if it's still a thing.
I don't think it is anymore.
No, don't
Unless
it.
someone
Okay.
brought it back. Okay.
No, I'm not seeing it. Okay, sorry. Please continue.
So Transter back in the day, it was around the same kind of like transitional mail when that thing came up. And what Transter was a for us, by us surgery site. So we would say, hey, this doctor in this state, these surgeries, and I saw them, and here's the picture, before and after. And it was searchable. It had like little drop scroll bars, so you could look in your city and be like, okay, I'm in Missouri, I see 3 doctors. Oh, those results look terrible. I'm gonna have to go out of state. Because especially back then, like, we had people doing surgeries who had no business doing surgeries. Like, they were hacks.
Right. What year was this? Would you like approximately?
That was approximately 2004-ish.
Cool. Okay, cool.
The early aughts.
Early aughts. Yep. What a time.
Mm-hmm. And I remember seeing that first photo and just vomiting on the screen. It was so bad. Um, I met the guy later, bless his heart, and he got it fixed, but he had to go through a bunch of lawsuits and stuff. Basically, keyhole and double incision work for only certain body types,
Yeah.
and this surgeon did not take the body type into account and
Ugh.
tried to do this like liposuction thing with a larger guy and then try to do a keyhole thing. So basically, it just looked like concave and it scarred that way. It was terrible.
Oh, that's awful.
Yeah, and then he didn't want to refund him or sign his surgery letter because back then, especially Missouri, you had to go through surgery first, then get a letter from your surgeon in order to change any birth certificates or gender markers or anything. Like, it was a whole thing, and it was very gatekeepy.
Right.
So to be put into this kind of limbo no man's land where it's like, well, you had the surgery and I'm not fixing it and I'm not giving you your letter.
Yikes. Ooh, that is no good.
Yep. So instead, I went in the night in a blizzard in winter to Plano, Texas, and I went to a Dr. Rafael and had my surgery there.
That sounds so it's like the hero's journey, like you're off on this it's back to the quest, it's this is your main quest line here. So how did surgery go? What was the experience like?
So I was a very broke, poor person, but I had friends. So essentially, how I saved up for it is I rented my friend's couch and kept my stuff in like one of those, what do you call it? Those like public storage things.
Yeah.
Not that I had a lot of stuff, but I was working for like $12 an hour at a alarm dispatch place, and like I was eating ramen noodles. Like, I was so tight with the money. And then the time came, and my friend borrowed her mom's car. We drove up to Plano again in the blizzard in the night. And when we got there, I only had enough money because, like, you couldn't leave. You had to go in, check in for surgery, have your surgery, stay there for 14 days, and then come back for your follow up visit. And then they would give you your doctor's surgeon note. So since I didn't have money for 2 people, I rented a room for 1 person, and I kept hiding the other person for 2 weeks. And we were cooking food on a hot plate. Like, it, there was a lot of shady business, but you did what you could do to survive.
Right. Yeah.
And my friend, like, she's a saint. We had a falling out years later, but that's a different story. But I'm out of it. I'm waking up out of anesthesia, and she's sitting here. She is squicky. She cannot handle blood, guts, and gore, and she's over here emptying out my drains and going, "Ugh," the whole time.
Aw.
Solidarity. That's how that works. you know. And then I got my paper and I came back home and I just kind of settled into my transition, which, I wish I could say, yay, that's the end of the story, but no. That's when things started changing because, like, I had some friends who were solid and stayed with me, but the majority of them, as soon as I started transitioning, to them, I'm a different person. To me, I'm the same person. Like, you're finally actually meeting me. So they didn't feel as comfortable talking to me anymore. And they didn't, want to hang out and do like, bro skinship anymore. I was a dude now, and now they had to confront that.
That is definitely an uncomfortable situation when you start to, when you transition and then your friends are like, some of them are awesome, some of them will stay, and other ones, they show themselves.
Yep. But that was the disheartening part because like I thought a lot of those relationships were more solid, and they weren't. They evaporated into the air, and when your family of origin evaporates into the air, and then your chosen family evaporates into the air, and your spiritual community evaporates into the air. Because that's another thing. The turfs, the Dianiki turfs,
Mhm.
they did not like that I was a dude now. So they basically ran me out on a rail for existing. I didn't even do anything. So now, everything that was solid was now vapor. And I didn't know what else to do. So, I went into this little hippie store inside town called Peace Nook. And it was run by legit hippies who opened a bookstore. And they had all these books that you would never see. And in their LGBT section, which was like, what, 2.5, 3 foot long, they had like 3 trans books in there. And one of them was Becoming a Visible Man by Jameson Green. You ever heard of it?
I have actually. I haven't read it, but it's on my list to track that down.
It's kind of like a little bit Stone Butch bluesy, but it's autobiographical. But it's that kind of visceral, like, this is the good and the bad and the stuff that happened in my life.
Uh,
And in that really low moment, I was reading that book in a janitor closet, not doing my work like an irresponsible young man. And I got about, I'm reading the book, and it's like, okay, childhood. All right. Reading the book, teenage stuff. I'm like, yeah. Reading the book, girlfriend stuff. Okay. Reading the book, transition. So I put my bookmark in the book, I closed it, I looked at it, and there was more than a half a book left. So even though I didn't have any like elders or supportive people or a community in my life, this book told me there's life after this moment of transitioning.
that is
So,
so like such an important message for people to get to, especially in key moments like that. Like you read the right thing or you see the right thing at the right time, and it truly impacts you.
and that's why like all of this book banning bullshit, like I can't grok that. I'm not okay with that.
Mm-mm.
Because even though it was a tiny book in a small town in the middle of nowhere, like legit nowhere, like banjos, nowhere. That moment with that book, again, saved my life. So, I packed my bags and I left Missouri for Virginia. And that was another time.
What part of Virginia?
I've moved around a bit. I've been in Centerville, Newport News. I lived in Norfolk a little bit with my cousins. Um, then I lived in Maryland for a little bit, up in Baltimore. Again, moving with the jobs.
Yep, always. Yep. So how did Virginia compare? Did you enjoy it? Was it like more I guess diverse, like gender wise? How was your experience there? Or is your experience there, I suppose?
So with Virginia, it was more of it's where I could afford to live. And my brother was in the Navy at the time, so I went to go live with him. And, we were fine for a little bit, but then he had kids. And that became really uncomfortable because, he didn't want his kids, being the Baptist young man he is. I'm like, you left Catholicism for Baptists. Okay. He's like, don't be gay around my kids. I'm like, huh? I'm literally just showing them bands. Like, you did that for me when I was a kid. So what's the problem? So I don't know. I guess he thought I was gonna trans and gay as kids by just like hanging around. And so me and him had a big old falling out. We didn't talk for like 20 years. But joke's on him because all his kids are gay.
That is the best. It's not instant karma, but it is karma, and it's very powerful.
Mm-hmm. And I'm the cool gay uncle, so they're like, yay.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really cute.
Yeah. And by gay, I mean kind of like queer rainbow kind of
Oh
gay.
yeah.
Not like
Hmm.
homosexual man who has sex with man exclusively. Like, nah, I'm talking about the whole thing. Whatever.
Nah, I got you. I got you.
Okay.
Um, so
Want
yeah,
to
what
clarify,
happened?
you know. But not too sure where to go next in this story. Oh, spirituality.
Yeah, let's loop back to that because I'm really curious to see the column A, column B thing you had mentioned.
Yeah, so in paganism, there's a lot of poly worship of different gods and different deities and different stuff. And what I liked was when I was there was a big emphasis on gender, and this group would let me go into the men's side. So I kind of bathed in masculinity, and I was like, yes, yes, I love this. Horn God, woo! Drink mead, yeah! Flirt with the ladies, sure! If they're into it. So like that part I liked, but then there would be all of these like, I don't know, it felt sometimes like they were humoring me, and I didn't like that. And I was legitimately there to connect with these spirits and to connect with nature, but there was too much of like narcissistic, I am a special rainbow, look at me, I'm a crone, I bought shiny rocks going on. So it made me question, are these actually my people? Because they don't seem to be into what I'm into. And then with the falling out and the whole thing about me growing a beard being such a to-do, like it kind of it broke my heart. it broke my heart. So, you know, a lot of us would keep altars around, and that would be our focal point to like pray and, you know, contact whatever God we were praying to. And all of them kind of just, got dusty. The whole thing just kind of went dusty and the lights went out. Except for one, which was Eris, the goddess of chaos. And you ever heard of Discordianism?
So okay, my mother-in-law is a pagan, and she has told me a great many things, and that sounds very similar to, or not similar. It rings somewhat of a bell, but it's not coming to me. Can you give a solid definition?
I can give you an amorphous definition.
That's perfect.
So during the whole Timothy Leary, let's take a bunch of psychedelic times, there was this non-religion that was started called Discordianism. It's in the same vein as like Church of the Dude and Flying Spaghetti Monster, where the goddess that they're worshiping, Eris, the goddess of chaos, is worshipped by creative chaos. So when people hear chaos, they tend to think about like famine and war and like all that kind of stuff. Discordians mostly think of things like playing pranks on people, doing really in your face art stuff to make you think about things. Like the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence gives off very Discordian vibes. And, it morphed into this other thing called chaos magic and all this other stuff. But the point was the kind of like screw you to the establishment that creative chaos embodies, but also the joy in the moment of trying to spread that creative chaos. So for one instance, one year, I found a bunch of Easter eggs, little plastic ones,
Mhm.
and they were like little plastic because it was Star Wars had just came out with another movie, so they were like Darth Vader heads. So I got all of them that I could find at this like dollar store, and I took them all home. And me and my buddies sat there and we wrote poetry, and we put them in these little eggs, and then we ran around downtown Baltimore and started hiding them. Just so that way somebody randomly would be like, Darth Vader, Langston Hughes, you know, and that humor, that spark of humor started healing me. Because if I'm laughing, whatever a bigot is saying to me, if I can turn it into a joke, the sting goes away. If somebody's being super serious to the detriment of everyone else, bringing a little bit of chaos in the room can then balance out the scales and bring joy back. So one day, I prayed to Eris, the goddess of chaos, and I'm like, I have lost my job. My boyfriend is an asshole. I hate my life. Chaos, I give this to you. And she completely got me out of that relationship. She got me a new job. It was a stressful, crazy, fucked up job, but it was a job, so I took it. And all of a sudden, these people wearing white and beads started being everywhere I was at. And I'd be at the grocery store, there'd be one. I went to another pagan commune in the middle of Pennsylvania, right? Like 4 hours from where I'm at, there they are. And all of them were from the same area in DC. So, When I see it 3 times, I pay attention. So the third time, there was this really drunk priest of Obatala, which I now know who that is, and I was like, "Hey, what's with all these beads?" And she's like, "Oh, this is Santeria. You need a consulta. Here's a number." You know, and in that, I found another Venn diagram meeting another Venn diagram meeting another Venn diagram and having an intersection in the middle. So it's like there's a lot of Afro Latino heritage there, and it has elements of stuff I'm familiar with from my childhood. And there's a lot of nature worship going on. So I went and I did that. So in a lot of ways, I'm still a pagan, but I'm not really in that uptight, there's only two genders, but we're going to get drunk and have sex in a tent kind of a thing anymore.
Yeah.
I'm over it. That was my 20s.
No, that's awesome though. So you are still in this vein of like offshoot paganism today, you would say?
So the thing that Santeria, Leukemy, the Orisha community lets you do is you don't have to pick one. You can be that
Yeah.
and something. So a lot of them, like in Cuba and Puerto Rico, they'll be, a Santero and a Catholic. So I'm more like a Santero and a Discordian. So that's where I put those two together.
That's awesome. I love the, non-exclusiveness to that. That's so cool. Um, so I do want to be respectful of your time. We have reached our hour mark. I can do a little bit longer, but if you need to go, I wanted to give you this opportunity to say so.
No, I'm still good. Let me just sip
Cool.
my water, and if there's any other questions you want to ask me, go ahead.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, how would let me think of how to phrase this. Would you consider your gender at all informed by your spiritual experiences, or vice versa, or neither? Is that just like not an applicable question?
Um, so one of the things I learned from my grandparents and my parents, the Catholics in the family, is when things are dire and dark and you don't know where to turn to God. The problem is that the God they turned to wasn't friendly to me. And it maybe not be God itself, it's probably the church. It's more than likely the fan club being assholes. But it's not welcoming, right? So I had to find another way. Instead of self destructing, instead of seeing the brick wall and stopping, I had to find a different route.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I struggled with spirituality and stuff myself, and I really like seeing people being able to find their own thing and what makes sense to them and what works for them, and that's just it's really beautiful.
Well,
Um,
and for me, spirituality was a medicine to get me through mundane life. It wasn't an escapist thing, it was all of the material sources are being denied to me because of who I am. All
nice.
of the privileges, right, are being denied to me because of what I am. So, what do I have to get over this obstacle? And that's what I have.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I love your perspective on this. This is personally very valuable. I think it's awesome. Um, so you had touched on book bans a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I both of us coming from Florida, we see what's happening, and I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on what I guess let's structure this as what is your take on everything that's going on now in regards to trans rights? And then I promise I'm going to follow up with a much more hopeful question. So go as dark as you want because there's light at the end of this.
Well, I think it's straight up fascism. I think that trans people are being treated like the gays were treated in the 1920s, you know, and in the 60s, and we're having our Anita Bryant moment. And, one of the things about my faith with Discordianism is laws are for the lawful. You can make a law all day. That doesn't mean I have to listen to you. I'll find a way around it. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest problem is that these leaders are not leading. They're saying anything they can to whip up a following in order to keep a job or to attain power, and they're whoring out their own humanity to other people in order to enrich themselves, and that is deplorable. And a lot of people are being lied to about many things, and it doesn't become real to them until they have to confront it. Living in Missouri, I met a lot of people who had never met a trans person before. And I didn't come out and go, hey, I'm a big old trans person. I just hung out and it would casually drop. And they'd be like, you? I'm like, what? Why didn't you tell me? Well, I don't ask about you, so why are you asking about me? Like, I don't have all the answers, but I do think that the gamification of politics and this red versus blue is dangerous. We see how people act out for sports teams. Put that with the commons in the same, and at the end of the day, what these legislators are supposed to be doing is they're supposed to be doing our business, right? They're supposed to make sure roads are paved. They're supposed to make sure the lights stay on. They're supposed to do the people's business. And instead, they're fucking with the people's minds and making them afraid of a boogeyman that doesn't exist for votes. Why? For what?
Yeah, that's it. That is exactly what is happening. So to kind of follow up on that, what gives you hope?
Well, let's just say I prayed to some certain gods about it, and eventually I am confident it will be taken care of. And another thing that gives me hope is that we're seeing a lot of the bad stuff, and part of that is to demoralize us, to make us not want to fight. But millennials and Gen Z and Alpha, they're not about that shit. Statistically, they're getting lefter and lefter and lefter. And just like I didn't have the word trans until I was like 24 because I didn't have access to the information and to the internet, we have the internet. We have the internet now. These people are educating themselves younger from a phone in their pocket. The computing power inside that phone used to take up a city block. We have these literal children walking out, and protesting anti-trans shit. We have them fighting for climate change and suing the government of Montana. Like, I see a world after these bigoted dinosaurs fall off, being outnumbered, only getting gayer and browner and and more diverse. You know, that's the world I see coming. And what makes me feel hopeful is because that's the world they also see coming. And that's why they're getting extra bigoted. That's why they're trying to reverse laws. That's why they're trying to push back, because they see the tidal wave coming.
I know my camera is off, so you can't see this, but I do have a great big gay smile on. Like, fully agree. um, I think for my last like official question, uh, I I used to be a journalist, and my um, interviews always ended with, "Is there anything else?" And that's where I got like the most fascinating answers, basically. So I kind of wanted to give you that space to, is there anything else on your mind? Do you have a soapbox you want to get up on? Anything? This is your space, so go for it.
So my soapbox, since you talked about journalism for a minute there, my soapbox is that there's a lot of bad in the world. There's also a lot of good in it too. And sometimes the powers that be really want you to focus on the bad, so that way you don't have the energy to focus on the good. Because if you knew that there's something else other than what they've given you, you would choose that. You know, if you are told you don't have to grow up and marry that Catholic boy and have babies, that you can be a rocket scientist, that you can grow a beard, that you can be a hermit in the woods, that you literally can choose anything else. You can choose that too, but you have infinite choices. Then you have to actually sit there and think, what will you choose?
So, yeah, I love that. um, wow.
And
Sorry, go ahead.
no, and just some of the best journalism happening right now is not happening on TV.
Mm-mm.
It's happening online. It's we're doing the journalism.
Yeah, no, you're totally right, and that I think is a perfect note to end this interview on. Like, that's so true. So I'm gonna try to stop the recording, and I did this a couple times ago, and I accidentally ended the call. So we're gonna try this, and if it goes poorly, I'm just gonna come back in. So okay, 1 second. Let's see.
Okay.